All right. Well, hello there, Ignite the Church community. Eric Johnson here, and I am here today with Pastor Matthew Best, who is a practitioner of renewal in his context, and really looking forward to having you hear from him and looking at maybe making this a part of our regular outreach and engagement with you. We're bringing interviews with practitioners doing renewal in different contexts. I'm certainly looking forward to this conversation. So, Matthew, thank you for being here today. So, first question, just kind of as an introduction, kick it off. What new rhythm or discipline have you started to embrace, or are you hoping to embrace now as we move into the school year and the program year? What are you doing different, or what are you hoping to do different in the coming weeks?
Yeah, so I just started this call a couple months ago, so everything is new right now. Maybe it's helpful to kind of give a little
Yeah,
context.
yeah, go for it.
So I serve as pastor at Christ Lutheran Church in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm also the executive director of the health ministries at the church. And so we have a couple of free clinics. There's a medical outreach clinic, which is staffed by nurses. So it's kind of like very much like somebody comes in off the street, they need some kind of urgent care type of situation. They can do that. And then we also have a dental clinic that provides, again, free service. There's dentists who volunteer their time, and we have hygienists as a part of that. And it's people who are experiencing active pain. A lot of that is removing what the pain is, those type of things. So that's kind of the combination of what this call is about. It's in the poorest section of Harrisburg in Pennsylvania here, but also very diverse and lots of interesting challenges. So as far as your question about new rhythms, part of this, so I have 4 kids also, and the 2 oldest are in college and the 2 youngest are middle school and high school, and they're literally just starting school.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
this is causing our change in our schedule.
mine are
uh,
on their third day today.
yeah, right.
So,
This
yeah.
is day 2
Okay.
for for them. And so this is a change in when are we getting up, and when can I go for a walk, and how is transportation working, and all those type of things, and when do I need to come into the church, or when can I work from home. um, a lot of it is in the midst of, well, what worked in the past and how do we change, and what do I need to do going forward. It's just right now this kind of like in this kind of discovery
Mm.
phase of figuring out, well, what's going to work, because I don't know the answer to that question yet.
Right.
New call, kids starting, all this type of stuff it's all new. I don't have a normal yet. So I just keep kind of playing and changing as I go in that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's relevant to kind of where we are as the church, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
we're still trying to figure out, and not even just from a post-COVID reality, but just I don't know that we've really ever gotten over all of the upheavals, going back to, the downturn of '08, through 2012, and the various election seasons that we've had to weather, and the one that's upcoming, that we're all looking forward to so much. So I think that just in what you said there, it certainly speaks to me that we're just trying to dabble and figure out what life looks like in the midst of these changing times, and our congregation members are doing that as well. And so how does the church sort of come alongside them and offer some stability, even as you know we're not super stable ourselves, right?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and I think this kind of speaks to just we're in this time and this place of everything is changing. You've referenced that, and some people are looking for stability. but I'm not convinced that everybody is. Right. I think that's something that we assume, and so that kind of orients a lot of the church toward, well, we gotta hold on to stuff. And I think there's a lot of folks, especially people who have walked away from the church, who don't want to hold on to stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, they want to jettison things and be like, why are you still holding on to whatever? Um, I, Something that I talk a lot about is that I think as a society, as the church, also that we're really terrible at mourning.
Mm.
We're good at doing funerals, uh, right? Church is really good at doing funerals, but we're not
Yeah.
good at mourning. And I'm not talking about just when somebody dies. I'm talking
Mhm.
about the death of anything, a relationship, a belief system, the people have to move, they change jobs. Within churches, it's like, hey, we've been doing this event for a long time, and we've been just kind of going through the motions for the last 10 years. Well, why? Like, let's have a funeral for it and let's mourn, right? Because oftentimes, right, one of our key things that we talk about, that we proclaim, is life, death, and resurrection. And
Right.
yet I don't know how much we actually believe it, because we're
Yeah.
so afraid of death, right? And I think part of that has to do with, we're not good at mourning. Like, what did we lose? What has changed? How are we no longer in control? And how is it that
Mm.
we don't know anymore? If we were more intentional about the idea of, I'm calling it mourning,
Yeah.
it would help us out to just go on a path forward, whether it's the right path or not. But at least we'd have a path, because things that would have been cleared, we would have honored what has happened and taken with us what's good, and known that, okay, things have changed, we've changed, we got to figure out what the path is. There's no nice sign that says, oh, this way, but we can start to go forward, as opposed to be crippled by it and say,
Yeah.
no, we're just going to stay right here.
Well, it's like the saying goes, people don't fear change, they fear loss.
Yeah.
And we're not a society that is where we've really had to lose a lot, in
Right.
the last, I mean, the last 30, 40 years, we've had it pretty good. And
Hmm.
so, to be expected to have to give up certain things or lose certain things, there's just not that, we're not equipped by our past experiences to do that. So that, yeah, that's, I mean, shoot, we could do a whole thing on just that, and maybe we will in a minute. But let's back up just a second. I would love
Yeah.
for our community to hear a little bit about your origin story, a little bit about how you talked a little bit about your current call, kind of where are you coming from? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. So I'm a second career pastor, or maybe a fourth career, or something of that nature. I don't know. Right. Grew up in outside of Rochester, New York, up by Lake Ontario, and beautiful little town along the Erie Canal. And went to school out in Western Pennsylvania, where I met my wife. Graduated a degree in political science, and then went to Washington, D.C., where I worked on the Hill. I worked for a United States congressman,
Wow.
and then I worked for a lobbyist on the Hill as well. I was there. This is the craziness of our nation. You have to specify which impeachment that you worked on the Hill for. So I was there during the Clinton impeachment, and then got married, moved to where I live in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and did government affairs work, campaigning, all that kind of great stuff. And just got to the point where I was like, this, I've had enough of this. I saw too much of the corruption and everything else, and the challenges. And went and did entrepreneurial coaching, which I took everything that I knew uh, from campaigns and all, like strategy and all that communications, all that type of stuff. And I thought, well, I can do this with some small businesses and whatnot. Did that for several years and just got to a point where I was like, something is missing. I love the development, the coaching with people, entrepreneurs, but something was missing. And so I just put it all aside and did some odd jobs. I was delivering the paper. I was working the night shift. I'm married and 4 kids at this point. I don't know how we paid the bills, but we did. And and that's when this discernment started to happen. I had a spiritual experience that for me, I understood it as I'm being called as a Lutheran pastor. I was Roman Catholic up to this point.
Okay.
And so,
So you had your
and
own little mini Reformation.
yeah, right. And to switch from Roman Catholic to anything is a huge thing. Uh, so and I lost friends over this because they had that traditional Catholic view of anything that's not Catholic is just not good. So
It's not
but this is
Scottish, it's crap, right?
yeah,
Like
there you go,
like in
right. So I became Lutheran. You got to do that for a couple of years before you start seminary. And started seminary, went to Gettysburg when it was still Gettysburg. And my second year or third year, we as a family took the opportunity to do an exchange year of studies in Finland. And so we were outside of Helsinki, took classes there. I studied about the decline of the church in Finland. Um, Came back, did internship, graduated in 2017, took a call not too far from here, was there for 5.5 years. And a lot of the focus of that ministry had to do with homelessness and poverty. We were over at the truck stops. There's a lot of truck stops because this is the intersection of Interstate 81 and the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And there's lots of folks who live in their cars at the truck stops because truck stops have laundry, they have showers, and they have food. And so we were doing laundry with folks, making sure they could get a shower. We were having a meal that turned into dinner church. We were connecting people and getting them out of those situations into housing. Launched a couple of other organizations that dealt with all that. And that call ended in November of this past year.
Okay.
And just took some time to figure out what do I want to do. And this call came about that same time, opened up. And so it started with a lot of conversation. And it's this beautiful mix of a congregation that's small and this health ministry that has this direct impact on folks in a very challenging setting where folks have a lot of challenges. I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned about the idea of this fear of loss, right? Like, so I'm pretty middle class, live in a suburban neighborhood, and I drive in to here to the city, and so I get to learn about loss a lot. These are folks who lose a lot, and we have a lot to learn from them and their experience. And things are just always changing, and somehow they're surviving. They're in survival mode a lot of times, but I think there's a lot to learn from those experiencing poverty about loss.
Yeah. A colleague of ours, I don't know if you know Jessica Heron, but she wrote an article for Faith Lead on resilience. And the thing that struck me about what she wrote and is that there's a lot of talk about resilience and the need for leaders to be resilient, but the path to become resilient really, really sucks. like, because you got to have a lot of bad things happen to you
Right.
in order to learn how to be resilient. Like, you can't just be in a cushy spot,
Yep.
and just like magically be prepared to have your teeth kicked in
Right.
and still be able to eat dinner at night. Like,
Right.
so that was just really interesting, and thinking about the resilient people that I know, the resilient congregations. I mean, the congregation I serve, really navigated COVID fairly well. I think because COVID was probably the fifth worst thing that's happened to it.
Right.
And so because of that, the people are like, oh, okay, well, we've survived lots of other things. We'll survive this too. Whereas perhaps, other places that, weren't used to that haven't had that experience, they struggle because they had not navigated, had not had to navigate those difficult circumstances. So for all
Yeah.
you out there who are tired of hearing how you need to become a resilient leader, like, I get it, and it's not fun. So if anybody's telling you it's this easy process, there's no such thing as 5 steps to becoming a resilient leader. Like that, that's usually
Just
it involves injury and pain, trauma.
right. Yeah.
Those are the
I
steps.
the best, if you want a controlled version of trying to get resilience, is run marathons.
Right.
That's the best way to do that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, I guess I will never be resilient then, because that is not something that's ever in my future. So yeah, so I'd love to hear more. You shared a little bit about the congregation. From what you know, how did this health ministry come about? This was something that predates you. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah. So share a little bit of that origin story as best you
sure.
know it.
Sure. So the the origin of the health ministries really resides in part of the history of the church. The health ministries have been here for 25 years. And if you go back, so this congregation is 133 years old. And back at that point, this was a pretty decent, like wealthy or not, not super wealthy neighborhood, all white. And then things change. At one point in the middle of the last century, there were 3,000 members in
Oh,
this
wow.
congregation, and the building is huge.
Okay.
And so you can be like, oh yeah, 3,000 members, right? Of course. Um, and then white flight happens. People leave. The neighborhood changes. Nowadays, this neighborhood is majority is Hispanic and African American. And there's lots of folks with various legal statuses and various levels of what languages they speak and all of that, right? So go back to towards the end of the last century, and the congregation had dwindled from that 3,000 members to 7 people in worship.
Wow. Oh.
Can you imagine? Right.
Oh.
And but
I don't want to imagine. That's just I'm not resilient enough.
so anyway, the synod sent somebody here. Her name was Jody. She was the pastor who was sent here to shut it down. And Jody had a background also as a nurse. So she was part-time as a pastor, really just here on Sundays, and the rest of the time she was keeping herself busy doing nursing things. She found out about there's a local Catholic church not too far from here, a couple blocks, and they did a soup kitchen and those type of things. And so she planted herself there and did blood pressures and those kind of things that nurses provide, and it was in a neighborhood that's needed. And so that's kind of how the health ministry started, medical outreach, with her going over there. And so this was for 5 years. This congregation here sat with 7 people. They had an endowment that just kind of paid things.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what had happened is they needed to die as a congregation in order that resurrection would happen. Mm-hmm. They had to let go of wherever going to be 3,000 members. We're just, whatever happened in the past is in the past. We had to literally die as a congregation. Mm-hmm. And so what that did is then Jody came and said, hey, let's take what we're doing over there and just shift it over here. We have space. What if we actually like went full in on this?
Mm-hmm.
So she had a conversation with one of the hospitals in the area, and they loved it. And so what happened is there was this whole, like, the basement got redone. Nowadays it looks like you walk into a health clinic and there you are. You don't realize that you're in a church. And so we share this ministry. The congregation exists because the health ministry is here, and the health ministry is it exists because the congregation is here, because the space, it's the symbiotic relationship that's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely beautiful, that the congregation can't afford a pastor on their own. And so part of my salary comes from the congregation, but it's also because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm the executive director of the health ministry. So part of that comes from, you know, all the things that go with making sure that the health ministries happen, and building those relationships and fundraising and all that type of great stuff. So it built, and then we added a dental clinic, and we also have a relationship with the community college that they do a nursing training, and they do dental hygienist type of training, those type of things. And so people are coming through here, and we, I think last year we served just under 10,000 people who came through the
Wow.
medical outreach. So yeah, so and like over 300 people for the dental clinic. Dental clinic's only open 3 days a month, for a few hours in the morning, but like 300, a little bit over 300 people last year who came and utilized the service. And a lot of them don't have insurance; they don't have a way to pay for it, and so it's a free service.
That's great.
It's very needed, and it's so. I like to say that because right around the corner from us, a couple blocks away, there's a public health clinic, and they still refer folks to us,
Wow.
which I'm still wrapping my brain around.
Right.
But because they have a limited capacity of what they can do and who they can see. And so I always say that we end up, all the people who fall through all the cracks of the healthcare system end up here.
Yeah.
And we're a special place of healing, and a community of healing is really what the focus is.
So I want to ask this question, but I want to be clear about what I mean when I'm asking it. The purpose of all the things that you're doing in the health ministry is not to, it's for, it's kingdom of God stuff. It's bringing healing. It's justice related. It's not for the purpose of growing that 7 that was showing up on Sunday, right?
Correct.
However, I mean, it would be my hope that as we, if I were in that setting, that as we accompany these people, we build these relationships, we earn their trust, that there is opportunity to not only care for their physical needs, but also care for their spiritual needs, and then empower them to also be people who engage in kingdom of God things. So, where is that part of the dynamic, and maybe talk a little bit about how that is functioning or not functioning, as whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So currently we average roughly 35 folks in worship. And a lot of those folks, I like to say that we're one of the most diverse congregations, at least in the synod, but probably beyond. I don't know exactly. But we have a lot of folks who are from this neighborhood, who are, we don't ask a lot of questions about things. But we welcome folks to come in. And so we're diverse in a number of different ways, whether we're talking about race or LGBTQ or language or whatever the case may be, economic status, those type of things. And so that's been a beautiful thing. This is the reason why I wanted to come to this call.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it gave me a broader slice of the image of God than what I had experienced before, where I got, one sliver of it. Now I get more. of that. And of course, there's a lot of challenges with that because you're dealing with folks with, diversity is a beautiful thing and it's a challenge at the same time, of understanding, here I am, a straight white guy who lives in the suburbs, and I'm coming
Right.
into this, right. And like I remember on the day of the vote for the call, after they announced that, I said, so um, please be gracious with me. I have a lot to learn.
Hmm.
Just correct me when I make mistakes and know that I'm not doing something malicious. That was part of my, right, kind of like,
Yeah,
thank you for
it's really
for
important.
taking me in, but this is the reality is I don't know if I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Um right. It's easy to do like some of the health ministries are almost like a nonprofit, and I can do that stuff. That's
Mhm.
easier, although it's plenty
Yeah.
of a challenge. But it's the people, right? That's the challenge of that oftentimes we have to learn, not through schooling or anything, but just in life.
Yeah, for sure. And so one of the things that I heard both in as you shared Jody's story, and then even some of your own, and then reflecting sort of on mine because I'm second career as well. And as looking at the renewal that I've been involved with here, seminary didn't teach me how to do that. Seminary taught me a lot of really good things. It
Right.
didn't teach me how to do that, right? Like I had to draw from a past skill set that I had developed.
Right.
Jody was using her nursing, and that was for you with your strategy and organizing and
Mhm.
those types of things. Um, I think about a good number of our colleagues who this is not their second career.
Right.
This is their first career and presumably their only career, and not having had those experiences and that training. What would you say to somebody who hears your story and says, that sounds amazing, I can't do that?
Right. Yeah. So no, you can't. And I can't do what you're doing would be the other thing, right? We're not called to do everything and be experts in everything, right? We're called to be authentically who we are, what our gifts and our strengths are, and to not do it alone. This is, I think,
Yeah.
one of the biggest challenges and missed opportunities that the church has had. And one of the things that I hope will change going forward, and it's probably going to change out of necessity more than because it should change, is this notion of one pastor is the expert in everything at a congregation. That
Right.
that is unsustainable, and it's not fair to the pastor, and it's not fair to the congregation. Right? I'm gifted in certain things. You're gifted in certain things. Anybody, I don't care if it's first career, second career, it doesn't matter. Everybody is gifted in something, but we're not gifted in everything. And so this is really important to have who are the other people that can help fill those holes that we have, and who are the people that we can really have trusted conversations with, who are the folks that we can work with and partner with. You got to find those folks,
Mhm.
because if you try to do it on your own, forget it. You're just going to burn out. I don't try to do it on my own. It's not possible. And I mean, that's probably one of the biggest difference, I think, between a first career pastor, maybe someone who's gone through the pipeline, and a second career pastor who's had other uh, work experience, is the second career pastors have made a lot of the mistakes somewhere else.
Right.
Right. We made a lot of mistakes somewhere else,
Definitely.
and learned things. And so that when we got to this, we're like, oh, we don't have to make as many mistakes. And that's just part of life, right? It's not that one is better than the other. I always say the folks who are coming, from college, seminary, right in, those folks got energy, and
Mhm.
that's a beautiful thing. And then
Yeah.
those of us who are, a little bit more years under us, we don't have the energy as much as we've got that life experience of
Right.
oh, I can avoid these mistakes, or I've seen this before somewhere else, and I'm not going to walk into
Right.
that hole. And so I would say also, like, for those folks who are coming through like that, find other colleagues that you can talk to, that you can partner with, that you can bounce ideas off of, that and you have something to offer as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and people can learn from that.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And I think, the word or phrase that I keep hearing from you is self-awareness. Like, I would imagine the call that you're in right now would be an attractive call to a number of folks. But if they don't have your skill set, it's not going to go well. And as if you were to, look at a call that for which you did not have that skill set, the skill set that required there, like that would not go well either. And to be really aware and okay with the skill set that you bring and the experiences that you bring, even if it's not, it doesn't sound sexy, when as sexy as ministry is allowed to be. Um, yeah. So yeah, the self-awareness piece and just knowing, kind of being okay with who you are. And if we
Yeah,
have I think part of the challenge as Lutherans is that we really don't have a functional theology of the Holy Spirit.
right.
And right. And so, if we believe to some degree that the Spirit is guiding us into where the places we are serving, granted that there are inequalities in that system and injustices and all, yes, all of that is true. And yet the Spirit is still operating and bringing us into places that where our gifts are a match, or there's something there we need to learn to prepare us for the next. It's probably a little bit of both.
Right.
That I heard this is probably as reformed theologically as I will ever get, but I heard somebody say, you're in the center of God's will because you're there.
Okay.
That's right. Like, I appreciate the point. Don't
Right.
100% agree, but also there is something about, like, there is something
Right.
here for me to learn or something here for me to contribute.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like, what I dreamed, what my dreams were,
Well,
that
and
there's still opportunity.
I would just add into that, like, you know, I know that I'm supposed to be here at this time in this place, and I was certainly not the right person when this ministry started 25 years
Right.
ago. Forget about age, but that's a far different skill set, and it was a different need. And then even after Jody's predecessor, who was here for 6, 7 years prior to me, that he was perfect, like the perfect person to be in this call at that time in this place. And now the whether you're talking, there's the congregation and the health ministries, the organization of this place has moved to a point where, okay, this is what is needed now. So I wasn't always right. This is
Right.
right. It's this time in this place right now
Yeah.
that what makes the most sense.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Um, lots of the folks that are a part of the Ignite the Church community are people who either are inspiring renewal in their context or want to inspire renewal in their context, and maybe don't have feel they have the freedom to do that, or the resources. And really,
Yeah.
that's what Ignite the Church is trying to be about, is to give encouragement, to offer opportunities for equipping. But even just as a word of encouragement, what would you say, just as a practitioner of renewal, to those who want to inspire renewal in their places? What's a word of encouragement that you might offer them?
It starts with you. And even if, I think about this in a variety of different ways, but even you can't control what other people are going to do. You
Mm-hmm.
can't control how they respond. So the only thing you've got is yourself. And so if renewal is something that's important, where does it need to be coming in you? Right. And where does
Yeah.
that need to be? How are you living it out? Because if you're living it out, you're going to change, you're going to be transformed, and it's going to be, people are going to see that and they're going to say, I'm really curious about this, or I want some of whatever's going on here. Because, right, what are we doing? Renewal is nothing more than the good news.
Right.
Gives life, right? It gives life. And so there's something about that that's just attractive to people. This is where, the earlier thing, I don't remember, but you had asked me about, numbers and all that. This is where, like, if we're focused on the numbers, we're going to get the exact opposite because
Right.
we're so worried about the lack of numbers, and that's what we focus on, right? So it's not about focusing on, oh, how many people are being attracted. Forget about that. How are you just doing it and living it? The people will come that are supposed to,
Yeah.
right? And that's, and so it's like this, get rid of the burden of I got to do this, that, and the other thing. Instead, I'm called to live this. There was I I've used this example probably a couple times today talking with different folks. So forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I forget. But I read this and it just has captured me today. And it was somebody, whoever it was writing, was saying essentially, we don't follow the way of Jesus because it's effective. We follow it because it's the character of God. And so they were using the example of turning the
That's
other
good.
cheek. Turning the other cheek is not a fact. You're not gonna, like,
Right.
it's not gonna work, right?
Yeah, you're
Like,
gonna get hit again.
you're gonna get hit again, right? Exactly. You're not doing it because it's effective. You're doing it because you're following Jesus. And this is what it means to follow Jesus. It's the character of God, and you're following that, and God is embodying you in that. And I'm like, wow, like, talk about a huge relief of weight off your shoulder of, oh, I gotta accomplish. No, it's look, you're called to be this. And so renewal is the same thing. I mean, it's not about the end result because you can't control what other people do, and it's not your work anyway. So how are you being renewed? How are you living that?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Renewal starts with you.
Yeah.
That's a good word, and that is a great place to end. So Matthew, I want to thank you for on behalf of the Ignite the Church community for being with us. And if people want to know more about you or know about your ministry, how can they find you?
Yeah. So we're, of course, on the web at christharrisburg.org. And you can email me at pastor@christharrisburg.org. And I will be more than happy to have any follow-up conversation or whatever.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, and Ignite Church community, be on the lookout for more of these practitioner interviews and content as we seek to help you ignite the church in your context.